So my loom is set up. I've decided on the first color that I want to use for my weft threads. Remember, the weft threads go left to right. And I'm going to thread this bit of yarn through the eye of my needle here. So the eye of the needle is this part at the end here. It's shaped like an eye. You can hold really close to the end of your yarn to get it through. Or a lot of times fabric artists, we're gross, we lick the ends of our fingers to wet the yarn so we can pull it through. And you're gonna let a lot of it hang through the eye of your needle, okay? You'll get used to managing your yarn. What we're gonna do the most basic kind of weaving pattern. We're gonna do the tabby weave where you go over one thread, under the next thread, over, under, over, under, over, under. So that is the pattern the whole time. I'm going to start on one side over here. And I'm going to go over, under, over, if you can see, under. I might have to lift up the warp threads every once in a while. And I'm being awkward because I'm filming this. But over, under, you can see the needle, how it alternates between each thread. You can see I'm going to pull it through till I get to the end of the yarn almost. We want to get to like this, where there's a tail like this sticking out. Okay? So then you have your first piece of yarn pulled through. For every row of yarn you do, I want you to make a little bubble, and then we call this beating it down, pushing the bubble down. So the reason for that little bubble is to get some looseness in your weft. That's called bubbling, this technique. And it helps prevent something called draw in, where the warp threads start to curve in like that, and you don't get these nice straight sides. You get kind of that mess going on. So I'll show you here. My yarn, my needle is now on this side of my loom, and I went under last here. So now to start the new row, I just go over still. I still go over, under, over, under. I need to make sure I don't skip any threads. And now in that first row, every time that the thread went over, the next row, that means I go under now. And you'll see, so between the rows, it alternates now. If you don't see that your thread is alternating, then you've accidentally skipped a warp thread. So I need to make sure I go all the way to this side. I didn't finish it, so. Okay, I'm gonna pull it through. And now, again, to avoid drawing, I'm gonna make a bubble or a little hill. Don't make it too tall, don't make a mountain, just make a little hill. Because what often happens, beginners will pull too hard on the thread, and you can see that warp thread's curving in already because I pulled just a little too hard. So to fix that, I'm going to grab this warp thread and just pull it to the side, and it'll loosen it back up for me, or I can pull on the yarn itself too, and it'll loosen it back up. But that is why make a little bubble instead of pulling it really tightly through and then beating it down, making it loose. So now I got 2 rows, and I'm looking, there's no drawing on the sides, there's no loose big loops happening. The yarn is perfectly pulled all the way through. And since I went under last here, to start my new row, I'm gonna go over. And you keep doing this pattern until you run out of yarn. This is how you tabby weave. So pull through, remember to not pull tight, I've made a little bubble and now I can beat down the yarn. And now I keep going. Oh, my tail of yarn got caught up in things. So that loose bit over there, we don't want it to get caught up in stuff. Okay, so you get the picture. It's over, under, till you run out of thread or you want to change the color, and you're gonna make sure you never skip a thread. I'll do this a little incorrect. And you can see there I skipped, I went over 2 and the pattern is now broken. So you don't want to break that pattern. If you keep breaking the pattern, your weaving is going to look off. It's not going to look professional. You're going to have to go back and fix your mistakes.